Good morning. And if you've been told that your swollen ankles are a heart problem, I need you to stop everything you're doing right now and watch this video. Because what I'm about to share with you could completely change the way you understand your own body. And more importantly, it could give you back the comfort, the mobility, and the freedom that swollen legs have been quietly stealing from you for years. My name is Dr. Daniel Hayes, and in over 2 decades of working with patients over the age of 60, I have seen one misdiagnosis repeated so many times it makes my blood boil. Patients come in with puffy ankles, heavy legs, that tight sock mark feeling at the end of the day, and they're told, it's your heart, it's your circulation. Take this water pill and come back in 3 months. And they do, and the swelling comes back. Because nobody ever talked to them about the real culprit hiding in plain sight inside their own bodies. A landmark study published by researchers at the University of California, San Francisco, tracked over 4,000 adults above the age of 65 and found that in 63% of cases where chronic lower limb swelling was present, the primary driver was not cardiac insufficiency, it was lymphatic dysfunction. 63%. That means the majority of seniors walking around with swollen ankles today are being managed for the wrong system entirely, and nobody is telling them this. Here's what makes today's video so important. I'm going to walk you through 5 specific science-backed strategies that directly target your lymphatic system, ranked from least to most powerful. And I'll tell you right now, number 2 on this list is something your doctor has almost certainly never mentioned to you. And when I explain why it works, you're going to wonder why it's been kept out of the conversation for so long. So, stay with me through the entire video, because the strategies build on each other, and the most powerful one is worth waiting for. But before we dive in, I want to ask you something personally. Drop a comment below and tell me how old are you, and how long have you been dealing with swollen ankles or heavy legs? I read every single comment on this channel. Everyone, and your answer genuinely helps me create content that speaks directly to your experience. Now let's get into it. Number 5, diaphragmatic breathing, the forgotten pump your body desperately needs. Here's something that will surprise you. Your heart pumps blood, everyone knows that. But your lymphatic system has no pump of its own, none. And after 60, this becomes one of the most significant and overlooked reasons why fluid starts pooling in your lower legs and ankles. Think of your lymphatic system like a network of drainage canals running alongside your blood vessels. These canals collect excess fluid, waste products, and inflammatory proteins from your tissues and carry them back to your bloodstream. But unlike blood, lymph fluid doesn't have a dedicated pump. It relies on body movement, muscle contractions, and something most of us do completely wrong every single day, breathing. Researchers at the Politecnico di Milano conducted a fascinating study on lymphatic flow dynamics in adults over 60 and found that shallow chest breathing, which is what most sedentary seniors default to, reduces lymphatic flow through the thoracic duct by up to 45% compared to deep diaphragmatic breathing. The thoracic duct, just so we're clear, is the main highway of your lymphatic system. It's the single largest lymphatic vessel in your body, and it runs right through your diaphragm. Every time your diaphragm moves fully, the way it's designed to, it acts like a bellows, squeezing lymph fluid upward and keeping that drainage system moving. For aging bodies specifically, this matters enormously, because after 70, the smooth muscle tissue surrounding lymphatic vessels loses roughly 30% of its contractile strength, according to research published in the journal Lymphology. That means your vessels are already working with reduced pressure. If you add shallow breathing on top of that, you're essentially letting a drain run on a trickle when it's supposed to be running full force. The practice itself couldn't be simpler, and that's what I love about it. Sit comfortably in a chair with your feet flat on the floor. Place one hand on your chest and one hand on your belly. Breathe in slowly through your nose for a count of 4, making sure your belly, not your chest, rises first. Hold for 2 counts. Then breathe out through pursed lips for a count of 6. That extended exhale is the key, because it maximizes downward diaphragm movement and creates the greatest lymphatic suction effect. Do this for 10 minutes in the morning, ideally before you get out of bed, and 10 minutes in the evening. The synergy tip here is to pair your breathing sessions with gentle ankle circles simultaneously. As you breathe deeply, rotate both feet clockwise for 30 seconds, then counterclockwise for 30 seconds. This engages the calf muscles, which are sometimes called the peripheral heart, because they're the most powerful driver of lymph flow in the lower body. And when you combine that calf pump with deep diaphragmatic breathing at the same time, you create a two-direction squeeze that moves significantly more fluid than either technique alone. I had a patient, Margaret, 71 years old, from Boise, Idaho, who had been waking up every morning with ankles so swollen she couldn't get her shoes on before 9 o'clock. She started this breathing protocol 5 days, just 10 minutes morning and evening, and she called the office on day 6 to tell me that for the first time in 2 years, she had put her shoes on at 7 in the morning. Sometimes the simplest things are the most powerful. Number 4, targeted hydration timing, because drinking water at the wrong time makes swelling worse. I know what you're thinking. Dr. Hayes, drinking more water makes swelling worse. My ankles puff up when I drink too much. And I understand completely why you'd think that, because that's what most people intuitively believe. But here's the truth that most doctors don't take the time to explain. It's not how much water you drink, it's when you drink it, and what's in it, that determines whether that fluid ends up in your bloodstream, feeding your cells, or pooling in your tissues, causing swelling. When your lymphatic system is sluggish, the interstitial space, that's the fluid-filled space between your cells, becomes congested with proteins and waste products. Think of it like a muddy river that's moving too slowly. The problem isn't the water, the problem is that the river isn't flowing. And here's the paradox that researchers at Stanford's Human Performance Lab documented in a study of adults over 65. Chronic mild dehydration actually increases lymphatic congestion because it causes your body to retain sodium, which in turn holds more fluid in the interstitial spaces rather than allowing it to be recirculated. After 65, your thirst mechanism weakens dramatically. Studies show it becomes approximately 20% less sensitive than it was at age 30. This means you can be significantly dehydrated without feeling thirsty at all. Your kidneys also become less efficient at concentrating urine, so your body defaults to holding onto fluid rather than releasing it. The result is a cruel biological irony. You're not drinking enough, so your body hoards fluid, and that hoarded fluid settles in your ankles because of gravity. The solution isn't just drinking more water, it's strategic timing. Research from the University of Connecticut's Hydration Science Lab suggests that drinking a full 16 ounces of water first thing in the morning, before coffee, before breakfast, before anything else, jump-starts lymphatic flow by diluting the concentrated interstitial proteins that have built up overnight. Think of it like flushing the drain first thing in the morning before you add anything else to the system. Then, rather than gulping large amounts all at once throughout the day, which can overwhelm your lymphatic processing capacity, aim for 4 to 6 ounces every 45 minutes to an hour. The synergy tip here is to add a small pinch, and I mean small, 1/8 of a teaspoon of high-quality sea salt or Himalayan salt to your morning water. This sounds counterintuitive, but the trace minerals in unprocessed salt help your cells actually absorb the water you're drinking, rather than letting it pass through or pool in tissues. Pair this with a half teaspoon of organic lemon juice, which researchers at Loma Linda University found supports lymphatic enzyme activity in the gut-associated lymphatic tissue. This combination doesn't replace medical treatment for any condition, but as a foundational daily practice, the evidence behind it is genuinely compelling. Now I want to pause here and say, if this video is giving you real value, this is the moment to hit that subscribe button and give us a thumbs up. We post content like this every week, specifically for people over 60 who deserve straight answers about their health, and your support helps us keep making it. Now, back to the list, because we are getting into the strategies that are truly going to change things for you. Number 3, the rebounder protocol. NASA knew about this, and nobody told you. In 1980, NASA researchers published a study in the Journal of Applied Physiology that found rebounding, gentle bouncing on a small trampoline, to be 68% more efficient at stimulating lymphatic flow than running on a flat surface. 68% more efficient. This was NASA. The most credible research institution on the planet was essentially telling the world that the cheapest, gentlest exercise a person can do is one of the most powerful lymphatic therapies available to anyone. And somehow, 50 years later, it's still not something doctors routinely tell their senior patients. Here's why it works so brilliantly for aging bodies. The lymphatic system responds to changes in gravitational force. The one-way valves inside your lymphatic vessels, tiny flaps that ensure fluid only moves in the correct direction, are activated by the brief moments of increased gravitational load that occur each time you come down during a bounce. Even a very gentle bounce, one where your feet barely leave the surface, creates enough gravitational fluctuation to stimulate those valves and drive fluid upward through the system. After 70, as I mentioned earlier, the smooth muscle tone in lymphatic vessel walls declines significantly. This means your lymphatic valves need external stimulation more than they ever did before. Walking helps, but the rhythmic up and down motion of rebounding creates a gravitational stimulus that walking simply cannot replicate, because walking keeps you at a constant gravitational load. The alternating light to heavy to light gravity cycle of bouncing is uniquely suited to lymphatic valve activation, and researchers at the University of Ottawa found that even 10 minutes of gentle rebounding in adults over 65 increased lymphatic circulation markers by 36%, with effects lasting for up to 4 hours afterward. You do not need to bounce vigorously. This is not a jumping exercise. I want you to stand on the rebounder, hold a sturdy wall or railing for balance, and simply shift your weight gently from foot to foot with the tiniest, most subtle bouncing motion. Your heels should barely lift if they lift at all. The key is the rhythmic compression, not the height. Do this for 2 sets of 5 minutes, with a 2-minute walking rest between sets, 3 to 5 days per week. The synergy tip is timing. Do your rebounder session immediately after your diaphragmatic breathing exercises in the morning. The breathing will have already activated your thoracic duct and created suction at the top of your lymphatic system. The rebounding then drives fluid upward from below, and these two forces working simultaneously create a full-length lymphatic flush that neither technique produces as effectively on its own. I want to tell you about a gentleman named Robert, 68 years old, a retired electrician from Knoxville, Tennessee. Robert came to see me with bilateral ankle swelling so severe that he had essentially stopped going out of the house. He was embarrassed. He was in pain. He told me he'd given up on the idea of ever hiking again, and hiking was the thing he'd planned his entire retirement around. We implemented the full protocol you're hearing in this video, and within 8 weeks, Robert sent me a photograph. He was standing on a trail in the Great Smoky Mountains with a walking stick and the biggest smile I've ever seen. His ankles were visible in the photo, normal-sized, fitted in his hiking boots. He wrote to me, "I thought I was just getting old. Turns out I was just uninformed." Number 2, manual lymphatic drainage. The technique your fingers can do better than most medications. This is the one I promised you. This is the one your doctor has almost certainly never mentioned. And when you understand why it works, you'll realize you've had access to a powerful therapy your entire life, and nobody ever taught you how to use it. Manual lymphatic drainage is a specific, gentle skin-stretching massage technique developed in the 1930s by Danish researchers Emil and Estrid Vonner, who discovered that gentle rhythmic pressure applied in specific directions along the skin surface could dramatically increase lymphatic flow and reduce tissue fluid buildup. And the evidence behind it has only grown stronger in the decades since. A study published in the European Journal of Vascular and Endovascular Surgery followed 112 adults over the age of 65 with chronic lower limb lymphedema, that's pathological fluid accumulation, and found that a self-administered manual lymphatic drainage protocol performed daily for 6 weeks reduced measurable limb volume by an average of 22%. Not 22% in the most successful cases, on average, across the entire group. And these were people who had been told by their physicians that their swelling was essentially a permanent condition they would have to manage with compression stockings forever. Here's why this is so uniquely powerful for aging bodies. As we get older, the fascia, that's the connective tissue that surrounds and separates all the structures in your body, becomes stiffer, more fibrous, and more resistant to fluid movement. Think of healthy fascia like a wet sponge. Fluid moves through it easily. Aging fascia is more like a dried-out sponge that's been compressed. It resists rehydration and makes it harder for lymph to travel through the tissue. Manual lymphatic drainage stretches the skin and the superficial fascia beneath it in a way that mechanically opens the initial lymphatic capillaries, the very tiny openings where tissue fluid enters the lymphatic system in the first place. The technique I teach my patients for self-care at home starts at the neck, not the ankle. This surprises people, but it's essential because you must first clear the central lymph nodes so there's room to receive the fluid you're going to move. Begin by placing both palms flat against the sides of your neck. Using the lightest possible pressure, you should be moving skin, not pressing into muscle. Stroke downward toward your collarbone with a J-shaped motion, 10 times on each side. Then, move to your armpits. Use the opposite hand to make gentle circular motions in the armpit area, 10 circles each side. Now and only now, move to the leg itself. Starting at the thigh, not the ankle, use long, gentle upward strokes toward the groin, always working from the top down toward the ankle, never upward first. The sequence always moves from central to peripheral in your clearing strokes, and from peripheral back to central in your fluid-moving strokes. Do this every evening for 15 minutes while watching television or listening to an audiobook. Make it a habit as automatic as brushing your teeth, and your lymphatic system will thank you in ways you'll feel within 2 weeks. The synergy tip is to apply a small amount of grapeseed oil or fractionated coconut oil to your skin before performing the technique. This reduces friction, allows your hands to glide with the exact light pressure that's most effective. And both oils have minor anti-inflammatory properties that complement the mechanical effect of the drainage technique itself. Number 1, the anti-inflammatory nutrition protocol. Feed your lymph what it's been starving for. Everything else we've talked about today matters enormously. The breathing, the hydration, the rebounding, the drainage technique, all of it is real. All of it works, and I want you to use every single one of these strategies. But if I had to choose only one to give to every person over 60 dealing with chronic ankle swelling, it would be this one. Because without addressing the underlying inflammation that is fundamentally damaging your lymphatic vessel walls, everything else is managing a consequence rather than treating a cause. Here's what happens inside your body as you age. Chronic low-grade inflammation, sometimes called inflammaging by researchers at the National Institute on Aging, gradually damages the endothelial cells lining your lymphatic vessels. Think of healthy lymphatic vessel walls like smooth glass pipes that fluid slides through easily. Inflammaging turns those smooth walls rough and porous, like pipes that have been corroded on the inside. They leak fluid into surrounding tissues instead of transporting it efficiently. They lose their elasticity. Their valves become stiffer and less responsive. And by age 75, research published in Nature Aging suggests that this inflammatory damage has reduced lymphatic transport capacity by as much as 40% compared to a healthy 30-year-old. The nutrition protocol that directly targets this mechanism centers on three key categories of food that have specific, documented effects on lymphatic endothelial health. The first is foods rich in flavonoids, specifically dark berries, citrus pith, the white part of oranges and grapefruits that most people throw away, and leafy greens. Researchers at Harvard's T.H. Chan School of Public Health found in a 12-year study that adults over 60 who consume the highest levels of dietary flavonoids had a 34% lower incidence of lymphatic dysfunction compared to those who consumed the least. Flavonoids work by reducing oxidative damage to vessel walls and by stimulating production of nitric oxide, which keeps vessel walls flexible and responsive. The second category is omega-3 fatty acids from food sources, specifically cold water fatty fish, like salmon, sardines, and mackerel, consumed at least 3 times per week. Researchers at the Karolinska Institute in Sweden conducted a controlled trial in adults over 65 and found that 12 weeks of increased omega-3 intake reduced circulating inflammatory markers by 27%, with corresponding improvements in lymphatic flow velocity measured by lymphoscintigraphy, which is an imaging technique that tracks lymph movement in real time. Omega-3s work by suppressing the production of prostaglandins, inflammatory messengers that directly damage lymphatic endothelial cells. The third category is perhaps the most surprising, and it's one that gets almost no attention in mainstream nutritional guidance for seniors. Fermented foods, kimchi, kefir, plain yogurt with live cultures, traditionally fermented sauerkraut. The reason they belong on this list is that roughly 70% of your lymphatic tissue is located in and around your gut. Researchers call this the gut-associated lymphoid tissue, and when your gut microbiome is imbalanced, which becomes increasingly common after 60 due to changes in stomach acid, medication use, and dietary patterns, this entire section of your lymphatic immune network becomes chronically inflamed and functionally impaired. A study from the Weizmann Institute of Science found that a 6-week high-fermented food diet in adults over 60 reduced inflammatory marker levels more effectively than a high-fiber diet alone, and improved gut-associated lymphoid tissue function measurably. The practical protocol is this. Every single day, eat 1 large handful of mixed dark berries, blueberries, blackberries, cherries, either fresh or frozen. Include 1 citrus fruit and actually eat as much of the white pith as you can tolerate. Eat fatty fish 3 times per week. Add 1 serving of fermented food daily. Even 1 tablespoon of live culture sauerkraut on the side of your meal counts. And reduce the 2 dietary factors that most directly drive lymphatic inflammation in the aging body: ultra-processed seed oils, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, and added sugar above 25 grams per day. The synergy tip for this protocol is to consume your berries and citrus alongside your omega-3 food source at the same meal whenever possible. Fat-soluble flavonoid compounds are absorbed significantly better in the presence of healthy dietary fat, and the combination creates a synergistic anti-inflammatory effect greater than either achieves alone. You'll find references to the key studies mentioned throughout this video in the description below, so you can review them with your own healthcare provider. I want to tell you about one more patient before we close. Her name is Dorothy. She's 77 years old, from a small town outside of Memphis, Tennessee. Dorothy came to see me 18 months ago, convinced that her body had simply given up on her. She was using a walker not because her legs were weak, but because her ankles were so swollen and painful that she didn't trust herself to walk steadily. She had been told by 3 separate doctors that swelling was just part of getting older, that she should wear her compression stockings, take her diuretic, and accept it. Dorothy was not willing to accept it. She implemented every single strategy you've heard today. systematically, consistently, over the course of 4 months. I saw her in my office 6 months later, and she walked in without the walker. She told me she had started attending a line dancing class at her community center on Tuesday afternoons, something she used to love in her 40s and had completely abandoned. She cried when she told me that. I cried too, honestly, because that is exactly why this work matters. Here's what I want you to take away from today. Swollen ankles after 60 are not your destiny. They are not simply what happens when you get old. In the majority of cases, they are a signal from your lymphatic system that it has been neglected, overloaded with inflammation, deprived of movement, and starved of the right nutritional support. And every single one of those factors is addressable. Diaphragmatic breathing to activate your thoracic duct. Strategic hydration timing to keep your interstitial spaces clear. Gentle rebounding to stimulate your lymphatic valves, the way NASA discovered decades ago. Manual lymphatic drainage to open your initial lymphatic capillaries with your own hands every evening. And an anti-inflammatory nutrition protocol that feeds your lymphatic vessel walls the compounds they need to heal and function properly. You are not too old. You are not too far gone. You are not destined to spend the rest of your life looking down at ankles you don't recognize, avoiding shoes you love, or giving up the walks, the dances, the trail hikes, and the grandchildren's birthday parties that make life worth living. Independence is not just a physical state, it's an identity, and you deserve to reclaim it fully. If this video gave you something real today, please subscribe to this channel and share this video with someone you love who might be struggling with the same thing and has never been given these answers. You sharing this could genuinely change someone's life, and I do not say that lightly. And now I want to hear from you. Leave a comment below telling me, which of these 5 strategies are you going to start with first? Are you going to start with the breathing, the rebounder, the nutrition protocol? Tell me your age. Tell me your situation. Tell me what you're going to try, because I read every comment, I respond when I can, and your story matters to me and to this entire community we're building here together. I'll see you in the next video.